The CEO finally asked the woman he loved to marry him. But just as Ava slipped the engagement ring onto her finger, a powerful member of the Kingsley family returned with a plan that could destroy their future before it even began. 3 months earlier, Ava Bennett had been the poor young mother nobody knew. Today, she stood beside billionaire CEO Ethan Kingsley, the man who loved her, the little girl who called her mommy, and the family she nearly lost forever. For the first time since the CEO's daughter stopped crying in her arms, life felt perfect. The crying baby who once searched desperately for her mother now laughed through the halls of the Kingsley mansion. The powerful CEO who once feared love now dreamed of marriage. And the woman who had sacrificed everything for her child was finally about to become part of the family she never thought would accept her. But while Ethan planned their wedding, someone else was planning their downfall. A woman who believed Ava did not belong in the Kingsley family. A woman with enough power to turn relatives into enemies. A woman carrying secrets from the past that could shatter the future. As little Lily happily celebrated her parents' engagement, danger was already moving toward the mansion. Who was Victoria Kingsley? Why was Richard Kingsley terrified of her return? What secret connection did she have to Ethan's future? And could the love that survived heartbreak, separation, and sacrifice survive a war inside the billionaire family itself? 3 months after Lily finally stopped crying, happiness seemed to have settled permanently inside the Kingsley mansion. The mansion itself looked like something from a dream. Perched on acres of prime land overlooking the city skyline, it was one of the most recognizable properties owned by Kingsley Global. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Security guards patrolled the gates 24 hours a day. Newspapers still called Ethan Kingsley one of the youngest and most influential CEOs in the country. Yet the greatest treasure inside the mansion was not money. It was family. Laughter now echoed through halls that once felt empty. Tiny footsteps raced across polished marble floors as Lily chased colorful soap bubbles across the garden. "Mommy, look, I caught one," Lily squealed. Ava laughed from beneath a giant oak tree. That sound immediately drew Ethan's attention. For a brief moment, he simply stood there watching her. Months earlier, Ava had entered this family disguised as a nanny, hiding the heartbreaking truth that she was Lily's mother. Before that, she had struggled through poverty, pregnancy, loneliness, and her mother's near-fatal accident. Those scars remained hidden beneath her smile, but they shaped every part of the woman she became. Ethan often found himself remembering the first time he met her. The candlelit bookstore. The city blackout. The woman who treated him like an ordinary man instead of a billionaire heir. Then another memory always followed. A newborn baby left at his mansion gate. A handwritten note. A mother sacrificing her own happiness to save her child. Every road somehow led back to Ava. And every road led Ethan to the same conclusion. He never wanted to lose her again. "Ethan," Ava called playfully. He smiled, then slowly walked toward her. Richard Kingsley sat nearby sipping tea while watching Lily play. The older billionaire looked different now, softer. Age and regret had finally begun teaching him lessons that power never could. Losing his wife years earlier had turned him into a man obsessed with control. Losing his younger son deepened those wounds. But watching Ava restore life to Ethan and Lily had started healing parts of Richard he thought were permanently broken. Lily suddenly pointed at Ethan. "Daddy is smiling funny." Everyone laughed. Then Ethan did something nobody expected. He dropped to one knee. The garden fell silent. Ava froze. Richard nearly spilled his tea. Several staff members gasped loudly. "Ethan." His heartbeat pounded harder than during any corporate negotiation. Years of business success had never prepared him for this. "Ava Bennett," he began softly. Tears immediately gathered in Ava's eyes. "You gave me a daughter when I didn't know how to be a father." Lily tilted her head curiously. "You gave me a family when I thought I would spend my life alone." Emotion thickened his voice. "And when I was drowning in guilt and grief, you reminded me what home feels like." Ava was already crying. Ethan opened a velvet box. Inside sat a stunning diamond ring. The sunlight caught the stone, sending flashes of light across the garden. "Will you marry me?" For a brief second, Ava couldn't speak. A flashback swept through her mind. Hospital corridors. Unpaid bills. Her mother fighting for her life. A newborn baby in her arms. The fear of losing everything. Never in those moments had she imagined standing here. Loved. Accepted. Chosen. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder. "Yes." Cheers erupted around them. Lily began jumping excitedly. "Mommy said yes. Mommy said yes." Ethan slipped the ring onto Ava's finger before pulling her into his arms. For one beautiful moment, the world felt perfect. But stories rarely end when happiness begins. That evening, a celebration filled the mansion. Music played. Staff smiled. Lily refused to stop showing everyone her mother's ring. Meanwhile, inside his private study, Richard received an unexpected phone call. The moment he answered, his expression changed. The color drained from his face. "What?" he asked quietly. A long silence followed. Then, "She's coming back." His hand tightened around the phone. Slowly, Richard turned toward the window overlooking the garden below. He could see Ethan, Ava, and Lily laughing together. A complete family. A family that might soon face its greatest challenge. Because the woman returning wasn't just any relative. Years earlier, Victoria Kingsley had opposed Richard's own marriage to a woman from a humble background. Years later, she opposed almost every decision involving Ethan. And there was another secret Richard hadn't spoken about in years. Victoria once dreamed of joining her daughter Sophia to Ethan through marriage. A dream she never completely abandoned. Richard slowly closed his eyes. The storm approaching this family wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within. And when Victoria Kingsley arrived, everything would change. The next morning, the Kingsley mansion woke to sunshine, laughter, and a happiness nobody wanted to disturb. But beneath the surface, tension had already begun spreading. Ava noticed it first. At breakfast, Richard barely touched his food. The older billionaire stared absently at his coffee, while Lily happily sat between Ethan and Ava, making up stories about butterflies living inside the garden roses. "Grandpa, butterflies get married too," Lily announced. Ethan laughed. "Do they?" "Yes." "And who told you that?" Lily pointed at Ava proudly. Richard forced a smile, but his eyes remained troubled. Ava noticed. So did Ethan. After breakfast, Ethan followed his father into the library. The massive room smelled of leather-bound books and old memories. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "Nothing." "Dad." Richard sighed. For years, Ethan learned that sigh meant trouble. Finally, Richard walked toward the window. "Victoria is coming home." The words landed heavily. Ethan's smile vanished instantly. A flashback surfaced. A younger Ethan standing nervously beside Ava-sized children during a family gathering years ago. Victoria Kingsley criticizing everything. His clothes. His friends. His choices. Even after Ethan became a billionaire executive, Victoria still treated him like a reckless child. "She hasn't visited in almost 6 years," Ethan said. "She has a reason now." Ethan already knew what that meant. "Ava." Meanwhile, downstairs, Ava helped Lily paint pictures in the sunroom. Life felt peaceful. Yet an uncomfortable memory suddenly resurfaced. Months earlier, while working as a nanny inside the mansion, Ava accidentally overheard 2 former employees discussing the Kingsley family. One name kept coming up repeatedly: Victoria Kingsley. Even then, people spoke carefully whenever mentioning her. Powerful, influential, unforgiving. At the time, Ava ignored it. Now an uneasy feeling settled into her chest. Mommy. Lily held up her drawing proudly. Ava smiled. What is it? Our family. Ava examined the picture. Lily. Ethan. Richard. Ava. Then something strange. There was a fifth figure, standing far away from everyone else. A woman. Alone. Ava frowned gently. Who's this? Lily tilted her head. I don't know. The answer should have sounded innocent. Instead, it felt strangely unsettling. Upstairs, Richard opened an email that had arrived moments earlier. Attached was a flight itinerary. Victoria Kingsley. Arrival tomorrow. But what truly worried Richard wasn't Victoria. It was the second passenger listed beneath her name. Sophia Kingsley. Richard slowly closed his eyes. Because 20 years earlier, Victoria had made a promise. One day, Sophia would marry Ethan. And Victoria never forgot a promise. Victoria Kingsley never arrived quietly. The following afternoon, 3 black luxury vehicles rolled through the mansion, gates like a presidential convoy. Servants immediately straightened their uniforms. Security guards became noticeably more alert. Even longtime staff members exchanged nervous glances. Inside the mansion, Richard stood near the entrance hall with his jaw tight. He had spent the entire morning remembering old battles. Years ago, when he fell in love with Ethan's mother, Victoria had opposed the relationship from the beginning. Richard's late wife came from a modest family. She was kind, intelligent, loving, but Victoria only saw what she lacked. Money, status, prestige. The same pattern was beginning again. The front doors opened. Victoria Kingsley stepped inside. At 62, she carried herself like royalty. Her expensive designer suit probably cost more than many people's yearly salaries. Diamonds glittered on her wrists and fingers. Confidence followed her naturally. Beside her stood her daughter, Sophia Kingsley, 30 years old. Beautiful, elegant, highly educated. Sophia had graduated from elite schools in London and spent years managing international investments. Society magazines often described her as one of the country's most desirable women. Years earlier, Victoria quietly nurtured a dream. One day Sophia would marry Ethan. One day the Kingsley fortune would remain perfectly inside the family. That dream died the moment Ava entered Ethan's life. But Victoria had no intention of accepting defeat. Richard, Victoria greeted coolly. Victoria. No hug followed. No warmth. Only history. Then her eyes landed on Ethan. My favorite nephew. Ethan forced a polite smile. It's good to see you, Aunt Victoria. Sophia stepped forward gracefully. Hello, Ethan. Hello, Sophia. For a brief moment, silence filled the room. Then tiny footsteps broke it. Lily came running around the corner. Daddy. She rushed toward Ethan. Immediately, his face softened. He scooped her into his arms. Victoria watched carefully. Then her eyes narrowed slightly. Because Lily looked remarkably like Ethan. And because a child complicated everything. Daddy, Mommy is coming. The words echoed through the entrance hall. Victoria's expression changed. Mommy. Seconds later, Ava appeared carrying a tray of juice glasses. She stopped instantly. Victoria stopped too. Neither woman spoke. The atmosphere shifted. Ava instantly understood who this was. The expensive clothes. The powerful presence. The cold eyes studying her from head to toe. This had to be Victoria. Meanwhile, Victoria examined Ava carefully. Not with curiosity. With judgment. Simple dress. Simple jewelry. Simple background. In Victoria's mind, she saw exactly what she expected. A woman who didn't belong here. Sophia broke the silence first. You must be Ava. Ava offered a polite smile. Yes. Sophia smiled back warmly. But Victoria didn't. Not even slightly. Instead, she glanced toward the diamond engagement ring on Ava's finger. Then toward Ethan. Then back toward Ava. And finally spoke. I see introductions are unnecessary. The sentence sounded polite, but something beneath it felt sharp. Dangerously sharp. And as Ava stood there holding Lily's juice tray, she suddenly felt the same uneasy feeling she once felt before leaving baby Lily at the mansion gates. The feeling that a storm was coming. And this time, it was wearing a smile. Dinner that evening felt less like a family gathering and more like a battlefield where everyone was pretending to smile. The Kingsley dining room stretched across nearly half the mansion's first floor. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. Fine china sat neatly arranged across the long table. Outside, the city lights sparkled beyond enormous glass windows. Yet despite all the beauty, tension sat heavily in the room. Victoria Kingsley had been in the mansion less than 6 hours. And already everyone felt her presence. Lily, thankfully, remained blissfully unaware. She sat beside Ava, happily swinging her feet beneath the table. Mommy helped me make butterfly cookies today, Lily announced proudly. Ava smiled, Ethan smiled, even Richard looked amused, but Victoria simply sipped her wine. Interesting, she said. Something about her tone made Ava uncomfortable. Sophia quickly changed the subject. Lily is adorable. You, Ava replied. Victoria's eyes shifted toward Ava. Tell me, she said casually, what university did you attend? The question sounded innocent, but Ethan immediately recognized the trap. Years earlier, Victoria used the exact same technique at family events: find a weakness, expose it publicly, then smile. Ava remained calm. I couldn't afford university. Briefly settled over the table, Victoria nodded slowly. I see. Sip of wine, another calculated pause. The conversation moved forward, but Ava noticed something. Victoria never asked about her kindness, her resilience, her role as Lily's mother. Only status, only pedigree, only accomplishments society could measure. Across the table, Richard noticed too. A flashback surfaced, 35 years earlier. Victoria asking his future wife similar questions. Which family are you from? Which school did you attend? What connections do you have? His late wife had sat through those humiliations with quiet dignity. The memory still haunted him. Meanwhile, Lily suddenly climbed onto Ava's lap. Mommy. Yes, sweetheart. When you marry Daddy, will you still sleep here? Everyone smiled, everyone except Victoria. Lily continued innocently. Because then you'll be my forever mommy. The room fell quiet. The words struck deeper than anyone expected, especially Victoria. For years, she imagined Sophia sitting beside Ethan. Not Ava. Not this woman from a background Victoria considered unsuitable. Sophia noticed her mother's expression immediately. For the first time that evening, concern flickered in her eyes, because unlike Victoria, Sophia wasn't sure she agreed with this fight. Later that night, after everyone retired to their rooms, Victoria opened an old leather folder she had brought from London. Inside sat photographs, newspaper clippings, letters, and one particular document she studied carefully. A slow smile appeared, because she hadn't come to the mansion unprepared. Long before arriving, Victoria had already begun investigating Ava Bennett. And what she discovered might be powerful enough to destroy the engagement before the wedding ever happened. Victoria Kingsley slept very little that night. Long after the mansion lights went out, she remained seated inside the guest suite, overlooking the estate grounds. The leather folder lay open across the table before her. Years of business had taught Victoria one lesson. If you wanted to win a battle, you prepared before anyone realized a war had begun. Her fingers rested on a photograph. Ava Bennett, taken months earlier. The picture showed Ava leaving the small apartment she once shared with her mother before Lily was born. Victoria stared at it coldly. In her mind, Ava represented everything she had spent her life trying to keep away from the Kingsley family. Not because Ava was a bad person, because Victoria believed love was never enough to protect a family empire. That belief came from an old wound. A flashback surfaced. 30 years earlier, Victoria's own husband had married her largely because of the Kingsley name and fortune. By the time she discovered his affairs and financial betrayals, millions had already disappeared. The humiliation nearly destroyed her. Since then, Victoria trusted pedigree more than emotions, background checks more than love, status more than promises. And now Ethan was preparing to marry a woman he met while hiding his identity. To Victoria, it looked like history preparing to repeat itself. The next morning, Ava entered the kitchen before sunrise. Old habits from her years of struggle never left her. Even now, living inside a billionaire mansion, she still woke early. Still helped the staff. Still checked on Lily first. The head chef smiled warmly. "You know you don't have to do this." Ava laughed softly. "I know." Yet helping people made her feel grounded. It reminded her of who she was before wealth entered her life. As she prepared Lily's breakfast, she failed to notice Victoria standing quietly in the doorway watching her. Observing. Studying. Looking for flaws. But something unexpected happened. One of the younger kitchen workers accidentally dropped a tray. Plates shattered. The young woman immediately burst into tears. "I'm sorry." Before anyone else reacted, Ava stepped forward. "It's okay." The worker looked terrified. "My salary. No one is deducting anything." The girl blinked. Ava smiled gently. "We all make mistakes." Victoria watched silently. The moment disturbed her, because it didn't fit the picture she had created. Manipulative people rarely showed kindness when nobody important was watching. Yet Ava hadn't even noticed Victoria was there. Later that afternoon, another surprise came. Richard invited Ava and Ethan into his office. His expression looked serious. Too serious. Lily played nearby with crayons while the adults sat. Richard slid a document across the desk. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Richard exhaled heavily. "Wedding news." Ava smiled. Until Richard continued. "The media somehow learned about the engagement." The smile disappeared instantly. Ethan frowned. "Already?" Richard nodded. "The story is everywhere." He turned the tablet toward them. Headlines flashed across the screen. CEO to marry former nanny. Kingsley heir chooses commoner bride. Can love survive a billion-dollar family? Ava felt her stomach tighten, because she knew exactly what public attention could do. Months earlier, one news report about Ethan's engagement had shattered her life. Now another wave of publicity was beginning. And somewhere upstairs, Victoria quietly watched the same headlines. A slow smile formed. Because public opinion could become a powerful weapon. And she was only getting started. By the end of the week, Ava Bennett's face was everywhere. Television programs discussed her. Blogs analyzed her. Social media users argued about her. And for the first time since reuniting with Ethan, Ava felt the weight of being connected to one of the most powerful families in the country. She tried to ignore it. For Lily's sake. For Ethan's sake. For her own peace. But some headlines were impossible to avoid. Former nanny, set to become billionaire bride. Can a poor woman handle the Kingsley empire? From bookstore clerk to billionaire's fiancé. Every article seemed determined to reduce her entire life to a few labels. One evening, Ava sat alone in the mansion garden reading one particularly cruel article. The words stung more than she wanted to admit. Not because they insulted her, but because they reminded her of old insecurities she thought she had overcome. A flashback surfaced. A younger Ava sitting beside her hospital bed while her father struggled to breathe. People will judge you your whole life, he had told her weakly. Some because you're poor, some because you're successful. She remembered holding his hand. What should I do? His answer never left her. Make sure your heart stays kind enough that their opinions don't change who you are. Back in the present, Ava wiped away a tear, then folded the article and threw it away. Unfortunately, someone else was already using those same opinions as a weapon. Inside the mansion, Victoria met privately with several influential women from high society. The gathering appeared innocent. Tea, conversation, social networking. But beneath the surface, seeds were being planted. Such a surprising engagement, one woman remarked. Victoria sighed dramatically. We all want Ethan to be happy. The sentence sounded supportive, yet the pause afterward carried meaning. The women exchanged knowing glances. Exactly as Victoria intended. Meanwhile, Sophia sat quietly beside her mother. Watching, listening, growing increasingly uncomfortable. Because she was beginning to see something she hadn't expected. This wasn't concern. This was sabotage. Later that night, Sophia found Ethan standing alone on a balcony overlooking the city. For a moment, neither spoke. The skyline glittered beneath them. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. My mother is planning something. Ethan didn't look surprised. I assumed she was. Sophia sighed. She's convinced Ava will eventually hurt you. Ethan turned toward her. For the first time, Sophia noticed something remarkable. The way Ethan's eyes changed whenever Ava's name appeared. Years ago, she thought she loved Ethan. But now she realized something. She had never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at Ava. Not once. Not ever. Sophia lowered her voice. Be careful. Before Ethan could respond, laughter echoed from inside the mansion. Lily. Ava. Richard. For a brief moment, all three were laughing together. A family. A real family. Sophia watched them through the glass doors, then looked back at Ethan, and quietly understood something her mother still refused to accept. Ava wasn't trying to become part of the Kingsley family. She already was. But upstairs, Victoria sat alone reviewing another document from her investigation. This one made her smile, because she had finally found something. Something from Ava's past. Something powerful enough to create doubt. And tomorrow, she planned to use it. The next morning began peacefully. Too peacefully. The kind of peace that often comes just before a storm. Sunlight poured through the mansion windows, while Lily sat at the kitchen island drawing pictures with colored pencils. Ava stood nearby preparing breakfast. For a brief moment, life felt normal. Then Victoria walked in. And everything changed. Good morning, Victoria said pleasantly. Ava smiled politely. Good morning. Victoria returned the smile. But something about it felt rehearsed. Calculated. The same way a lawyer smiles before presenting evidence. Lily immediately ran toward Ava. Mommy, look. She held up a drawing. Ava laughed. It's beautiful. Victoria watched the interaction carefully. Again, that uncomfortable feeling returned. Everywhere she looked, Lily chose Ava. Not out of obligation. Out of love. The child's attachment wasn't forced. It was genuine. And that made Ava harder to remove. Still, Victoria had come prepared. Richard, she said casually as he entered the room, I found something interesting while organizing old records. Richard immediately stiffened. Ethan looked up from his coffee. What records? Victoria opened a folder. The same folder she had been studying for days. Inside was a photocopy of an old police report. Ava's heart skipped, because she recognized the date immediately. Years ago. Before Ethan. Before Lily. Before everything changed. Victoria placed the paper on the table. Perhaps Ava can explain this. Silence spread through the room. Ethan picked up the document. His eyes scanned the page. Then his expression changed. Confusion. Concern. Shock. Ava felt her stomach twist. A flashback slammed into her. She was 19. Her father had recently died. Medical debt consumed the family. Her mother worked double shifts. One evening, Ava had been falsely accused of helping a former boyfriend steal money from a small business. Police questioned everyone involved. Though Ava was completely innocent and later cleared, the investigation remained part of public records. The accusation had nearly destroyed her reputation. Back then, no wealthy lawyer protected her. No powerful family defended her. She survived alone. Now that painful chapter sat exposed before the Kingsleys. Victoria folded her hands calmly. You forgot to mention that part of your history. Lily looked confused. Mommy. The room felt suddenly smaller. Richard's face darkened. Not at Ava. At Victoria. Because he recognized exactly what was happening. Years earlier, Victoria used similar tactics against Ethan's mother. Half-truths. Selective facts. Public embarrassment. Sophia entered just in time to hear the last sentence. Her face immediately paled. Mother. Victoria ignored her. Instead, she looked directly at Ethan. A man preparing to marry should know everything. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Then Ethan slowly placed the report back on the table. His eyes never left Ava. The entire room waited. Victoria expected doubt. Suspicion. Questions. Instead, Ethan stood up, walked around the table, and took Ava's hand. The gesture stunned everyone, including Ava. I already know who she is. Victoria blinked. Ethan's voice remained calm. She's the woman who sacrificed everything for her daughter. He squeezed Ava's hand gently. She's the woman who sat beside her mother's hospital bed when nobody else would. Another pause. And she's the woman who walked away from me once because she thought my future mattered more than her own happiness. Victoria's expression hardened. But Ethan wasn't finished. Whatever happened before I met Ava helped create the woman I love today. Ava felt tears forming. Not from pain. From relief. Across the room, Lily suddenly smiled. Because she sensed something important. Her family was standing together. And for the first time since arriving at the mansion, Victoria realized something troubling. Separating Ethan and Ava might be far more difficult than she expected. But deep down, she wasn't ready to surrender. Not even close. Because there was still one secret she hadn't revealed. And unlike the police report, this one had the power to change everything. Victoria Kingsley spent the next 2 days pretending to retreat. She smiled more, spoke less, stopped questioning Ava at family meals. To everyone else, it looked like she had finally accepted defeat. But Richard knew his sister too well. Victoria never retreated. She repositioned. That realization kept him awake at night. One evening, as the mansion prepared for a small engagement dinner with close friends and family, Richard found himself staring at an old photograph hidden inside his desk drawer. The picture showed 2 children. A young Ethan. A young Sophia. Standing together during a summer vacation decades ago. The memory carried an uncomfortable truth. Years earlier, Victoria's dream of marrying Sophia to Ethan had not come from nowhere. The Kingsley elders had once quietly discussed the possibility. Not seriously, not formally, but enough that Victoria treated the idea like a promise. Richard closed the drawer heavily. That mistake was returning to haunt them. Meanwhile, Upstairs, Ava stood before a mirror while adjusting a simple navy blue dress. She still wasn't fully comfortable with luxury, even after living inside the mansion for months. Growing up poor leaves invisible habits. Before every event, she still worried whether she looked out of place, whether she belonged, whether people secretly judged her. A knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." The door opened. Sophia entered. Ava smiled politely. "Hi." Sophia hesitated. For a moment, she seemed unsure what to say. Then she quietly sat beside Ava. "My mother is getting desperate." Ava sighed softly. "I noticed." Sophia looked down. Guilt crossed her face. "There's something you should know." Ava immediately sensed the seriousness. "What is it?" Sophia took a deep breath. "My mother believes my grandfather made a promise before he died." Ava frowned. "What kind of promise?" The answer came quietly. "That Ethan and I would someday marry." The room went silent. Ava stared. Sophia quickly continued. "It was never official." "Did Ethan know?" "No." "Did you?" Sophia nodded sadly. "Since I was a teenager." A painful silence followed. For years, Sophia had lived beneath expectations she never asked for. Ava suddenly understood something. Victoria wasn't only fighting for family status. She genuinely believed she was protecting her daughter's future. That realization made the situation more complicated, not easier. Downstairs, guests began arriving. The engagement dinner started beautifully. Laughter, music, family. For a few hours, everything seemed normal. Then Victoria stood unexpectedly. Glass raised. Smile perfect. "Before we celebrate," she announced, "I'd like to share something important about Ethan's future." The room slowly quieted. Richard immediately felt dread. Ethan frowned. Sophia's face turned pale. And Ava's heart began to race. Because whatever Victoria was about to reveal, she had clearly planned it for a very long time. Every guest turned toward Victoria Kingsley. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead while waiters froze in place, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere. Victoria stood gracefully with her champagne glass raised. For anyone who didn't know her, she looked like a proud aunt giving a family toast. But Richard knew better. And judging from Sophia's pale expression, she knew exactly what was coming too. "Victoria," Richard warned quietly. She ignored him. "I simply want to honor family tradition." Ava's stomach tightened. Ethan reached beneath the table and gently squeezed her hand. The small gesture steadied her. Victoria smiled at the guests. "Many of you don't know this, but years ago, the Kingsley family dreamed of uniting two branches of our family." The room remained silent. Sophia closed her eyes. She already knew. Victoria continued. "My father always believed Ethan and Sophia would someday build a future together." Whispers immediately spread across the room. Ava felt every eye turning toward her. The old insecurity she thought she had conquered suddenly returned. The bookstore employee. The struggling daughter. The young woman who couldn't afford university. The mother who once left her child at a mansion gate because she had no other choice. For a brief moment, she felt small again. Exactly as Victoria intended. Then Victoria delivered the final blow. "I only wish Ethan had considered that promise before making such a life-changing decision." Silence. Heavy. Painful. The room waited for Ethan. Waited for Ava. Waited for drama. Instead, someone unexpected stood up first. "Sophia." "That's enough, Mother." The room froze. Victoria blinked. Sophia rarely challenged her publicly. But tonight was different. Sophia's voice trembled slightly. Not from fear. from years of frustration. You keep telling everyone this story, as if it were my dream. Victoria stared. It wasn't. The words landed like thunder. Sophia turned toward the guests, then toward Ava, then Ethan. I never wanted an arranged future. Victoria's face hardened. Sophia. No. For the first time in years, Sophia interrupted her mother. I spent half my life trying to become the woman everyone expected me to be. Tears gathered in her eyes. But Ethan never loved me. The room remained silent. Sophia smiled sadly. And I never truly loved him either. A shocked murmur spread through the guests. Years of assumptions crumbled in seconds. Sophia walked toward Ava. Everyone watched. Even Ava didn't know what was coming. Then Sophia did something nobody expected. She took Ava's hand and smiled. You fought for your daughter. Another pause. You fought for your mother. Another. And you fought for this family. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Sophia looked toward Ethan. I've never seen him happier. Then she faced Victoria again. You taught me to value family. Her voice softened. But family isn't built through control. Victoria stood motionless. For the first time all evening, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. The room had slipped beyond her control. And deep down, she realized something frightening. She might already be losing. But as the guests slowly applauded Sophia's courage, Richard noticed something else. Victoria wasn't angry anymore. She looked hurt. Deeply hurt. As if an old wound had finally been exposed. And for the first time, Richard began to wonder if there was a pain beneath all her actions that nobody had ever truly understood. Nobody spoke for several long seconds after Sophia finished. The ballroom remained silent, except for the faint music drifting from the orchestra in the corner. For the first time in years, Victoria Kingsley looked completely unprepared. Not defeated. Not angry. Simply exposed. Richard slowly rose from his chair. His eyes never left his sister. Maybe it's time, he said quietly, for everyone to hear the truth. Victoria's expression immediately changed. A warning flashed through her eyes. Richard. But he continued. Because some wounds could only heal when brought into the light. Many years earlier, before Ethan's mother entered the Kingsley family, Victoria had fallen deeply in love. Not with a billionaire. Not with a politician. Not with a man from an elite family. She had fallen in love with a school teacher. A kind man. An honest man. A man who made her laugh. For the first time in her life, Victoria chose love over status. But the relationship ended in heartbreak. The man eventually left after being repeatedly humiliated by powerful families who believed he wasn't worthy of the Kingsley name. The rejection destroyed him. And it destroyed Victoria too. Months later, she learned he had married someone else. From that day forward, Victoria convinced herself of something dangerous. Love was unreliable. Status was safer. Money was protection. Control prevented heartbreak. Over time, those beliefs hardened into walls. Walls so strong that even Victoria forgot why she built them. The ballroom remained silent. Sophia stared at her mother in shock. She had never heard this story. Neither had Ethan. Victoria slowly lowered her eyes. For the first time all evening, tears appeared. I was trying to protect you, she whispered to Sophia. I know. I didn't want you hurt the way I was. Sophia walked toward her. Years of distance stood between them. Years of expectations. Years of misunderstanding. Then Sophia gently hugged her mother. Victoria froze. Then finally hugged her back. The ballroom softened. Even some guests wiped away tears. Richard smiled quietly. The family wasn't breaking apart. It was healing. Victoria slowly pulled away and looked toward Ava. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then Victoria walked across the room. Every guest watched. Ava's heart raced. Victoria stopped in front of her. And something nobody expected happened. The powerful woman who had spent weeks fighting this engagement reached for Ava's hand. I was wrong. The words came quietly, but they carried enormous weight. Ava blinked. Victoria's eyes glistened. I spent so much time looking at where you came from. She glanced toward Lily. That I failed to see who you truly are. Emotion tightened Ava's throat. Victoria continued. You protected your mother. You protected your daughter. And somehow, she smiled softly, you even protected this family. Ava felt tears fall. The ballroom erupted into applause. Not forced. Not polite. Genuine. Because everyone understood what they had just witnessed. Acceptance. Real acceptance. Not tolerance. Not compromise. Acceptance. Across the room, Lily suddenly ran between the adults. Mommy. Ava laughed through tears and scooped her up. Lily looked around the room proudly. Everybody stopped crying now. The entire ballroom burst into laughter. Even Victoria. Especially Victoria. Months later, wedding preparations filled the Kingsley mansion. This time, there were no scandals. No secrets. No hidden battles. Only family. Richard proudly walked Ava down the aisle because her father was no longer there to do it. Martha sat in the front row with tears in her eyes, now fully recovered and walking on her own again. Sophia stood smiling among the guests. And Victoria herself adjusted Ava's veil before the ceremony began. When the chapel doors opened, Ethan looked up. And for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. Because after everything they survived, she was finally walking toward him. Not as a nanny. Not as a stranger. Not as a secret. But as the woman he loved. The woman who changed his life. The woman who gave him a family. As they exchanged vows, Lily sat between Richard and Martha, proudly holding a basket of flower petals. Halfway through the ceremony, she waved enthusiastically. Daddy, don't cry. Laughter filled the chapel. Ethan laughed too, though tears were already in his eyes. I'll try. When the officiant finally pronounced them husband and wife, applause thundered through the room. Ethan kissed Ava. The crowd cheered. Lily jumped excitedly. And for the first time in a very long time, every broken piece of the Kingsley family finally fit together. That night, after the celebration ended, Ethan stood beside Ava on the balcony overlooking the city. The same city where they first met. The same city where they lost each other. And found each other again. Inside the mansion, Lily's laughter echoed through the halls. Not crying. Not searching. Laughing. Ava rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. We made it. Ethan smiled. No. He gently kissed her forehead. We found it. And below them, the lights of the city stretched endlessly into the night. But for Ethan, Ava, Lily, Richard, Martha, Sophia, and even Victoria, home was no longer a place. It was each other.